Yeah, so at one point, it seems to be, as I recall, in 2020, you can wear a mask. If it makes you more comfortable, it's not going to do anything. But hey, here comes Jacinda Ardern with the totalitarianism and the medical tyranny, and she's not an expert either. And so you say you're listening to people who are overseas, so you're actually not current in New Zealand, and she's no health expert, and she's made everyone wear a mask, down to people in school now. How disgusting are you? Like, you're gross. And the reason that is gross, and the reason we know that it's gross, is because you're overrepresenting something, aren't you? You're overrepresenting an infection fatality rate. Do you know what an infection fatality rate is, Jacinda? Have you heard these before? I know you're no expert because Tracy McClellan says that only experts should speak on this. Well, I'll tell you one because I am an expert. I'll tell you what they are. Infection fatality rate is how many people who are infected with COVID actually die from it. Meaning, we've done something that hasn't been done here, except they've picked lab blood samples, but they haven't actually gone out to the population and picked them at random like we do population antibody studies, like they did in the U.S., like many studies were done in the U.S. And what they found there is it was 0.13 to 0.5% deadly. 0.13 to 0.5%. So what right do you have to go and tell school children that, number one, they have to wear a mask, and number two, they have to get jabbed? This is not a pandemic in the sense of pandemics in the past. And you are taking the good trusting Kiwi sensibility, and you are abusing it. You're like a terrible Munchausen's by Prime Sinister. That's what you are. You're abusing the people of this good country, and you're spreading fear. You are actually the disease, not COVID. COVID kills almost nobody. And if we go back and say, oh, well, Michael Baker of Otago University says it's 1%. Well, I talked to him directly, and a meta-analysis, he agreed that it was probably 0.7 in some things. So 0.7, so I went and had a look at those. And wouldn't you know, when they put a lot of those studies together, it's because they include something called excess deaths. Well, they're just grabbing deaths out of anywhere and put in there. For all we know, they could have been suicide because people like you lock people down. How disgusting. It could have also been that they were killing them with high pressure ventilation. That's also a thing. So we don't know. So we just dump those deaths in, and then we say they died from COVID. But those aren't real. So when you take those out, it actually goes down to about 0.25. So 0.25. So what do you get? A 99.75% chance of surviving something? That's not a pandemic. And how dare you take this country and do this to them? They are too good for you to treat them this way, and they deserve better. And Bloomfield, turn in your damn registration. Turn in your medical license. Don't go after people who aren't vaccinated. Turn yours in for doing this to a country. And the other part of this too is, you know, people are dying. You know the VAERS recording system in the United States and how there's over 8,000 deaths just reported in one part of that. 8,000 deaths reported in that. And that's 1% of what is actually going on per 2009 Harvard study. You know that too. But let's skip that because that's a whole lot of deaths you're not speaking of. Let's skip to the one and go in here with CARM, Center for Adverse Reaction Monitoring, that catches about 5%. But so you've admitted to one. Sue Gray testified that there's hundreds. I'm getting people telling me as a reporter that there are many people who are dying, many people who are in hospital. COVID comas are happening in young people, the young people you want to put on this. So this 5% that's reported, well, you got one death, so was that 20? How many deaths do you have? You know that, but you're going out and telling people that this vaccine is, quote, safe and effective. You are a liar, and you know you're a liar. How dare you say that from one podium you're going to tell everybody the truth? Ashley Bloomfield knows the VAERS data. Ashley Bloomfield knows what I just said about CARM. Where are you guys? Where are you telling the New Zealand public what I just said? How come I can know it as a clinician, and you guys who are supposedly doing like a great job running this country through COVID, well, you're not running it through COVID, you're running it into the ground. You're destroying people's lives, you're destroying families, you're destroying people's school holidays, you're destroying people's school experience, you're alienating people, and you're going to destroy this country because it's all about you, isn't it, Jackie? It's all about you, Cindy, and not anybody else, because you just want to be the person that saves and mothers everybody. Well, you're an abusive mother is what you are. As a matter of fact, you know one person has already died, and yet you're advocating other people get it. You know people have been suffering from myocarditis. That's been reported. You know that people have died from that, and yet you're going out there saying it's, quote, safe and effective with no qualifiers. How safe and how effective? You're not doing that. You're not a clinician. Tracy McClellan says you shouldn't be speaking on it, and I agree with her. Ashley Bloomfield, why don't you come out and talk about it? Because if this is happening, both you are murderers. How are you not a murderer if you know something kills people and you do nothing but promote whatever it is? How? How is it that you're not a murderer? Tell me, I want to know, because you have blood on your hands. This good country deserves way better. And the supposed that Parliament is sovereign, well, guess what? You've made so many people angry that now you're going to figure out that the people here are assumed sovereign, not Parliament anymore. Because when you announced the other day that healthcare providers and teachers had to mandatorily get the vaccine, what you did was you made other people angry as well. The vaccinated have been speaking out now against mandatory vaccines. They see that you are coming after their freedom and their what they thought were rights. New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. Well, hello, legal people out there. Hello, courts. Hello, police officers. Hello, Parliament. If it's a rights act, New Zealand Bill of Rights Act, then they can't be taken away because it's a right. But no, you declared an emergency, and supposedly your declaration of emergency, which is false, which doesn't exist because COVID kills almost nobody. And you know it. You have the data just like I found the data, just like every other person out there. Even Michael Baker out of Otago University says in News Hub that it's 1% that it kills. That's 99% survival rate. This isn't time to shut a country down. This is time to get on with it, just like Sweden got on with it. Yeah, but let's talk about Israel, because it's safe and effective, isn't it? Well, we've talked about some safety issues with the vaccine. Now let's talk about some efficacy issues, because you're still out there saying it's safe and effective. Well, it's not effective, is it? Because Israel, what are they down to? 39% efficacy according to their health ministry? 39% efficacy. But yet you're here in New Zealand telling people they're going to get, quote, more of their freedoms back. More of their freedoms, as if you're the arbiter of people's freedoms. Who do you think you are? That's dictator talk. That's up there with Stalin and Mao and Hitler. And I don't know how you're any different than those. I don't see it. And I don't think you see it either. So efficacy, 39% in Israel. And when we look at their data, and we look at up-to-date data, not some study published before, when we look at it, it looks like about half of the people are vaccinated who have the Delta and half of them aren't. Well, that's a 50-50. That means if you didn't take it, you have just as much chance of getting it as if you did. Well, there you go. But so your new talking point is sort of blown out. But let's stop. Let's not move on to just yet. Because we can go to England, where they said that their effective rate is dropping for COVID too. The coverage is plunging. They're experiencing the same issue, aren't they? And you know this because you were in England. You have ties there. Tony Blair, ring a bell? You have ties. So you know this is happening. And if you don't know, well, why isn't Ashley Bloomfield, who reaches out around the world and all the OIA responses I get and say we look at ministries from around the world and look at governments, well, he's tied to CDC, NIH, and Public Health England, we look to England. Well, England would tell you, if you looked at that data, and so should Ashley Bloomfield, that efficacy is dropping. But you knew that was coming. If you didn't, you should have. And Ashley Bloomfield, certainly. And Chris Hipkins, I don't even know what you're doing around. Tracy McClellan says you're not even qualified to speak on COVID matters. And I agree with her. So what are you doing here? Please step away from the mic. What we're saying here is this. Is that vaccine, which you promote, which is going to fail, which is failing in other parts of the world who were vaccinated early on, it was designed to fail. Oh, what a big, huge statement. Oh, how can I say that? I can say that because I have the qualifications to say that. And then when I looked at what they did with the mRNA part of this, they produced one protein out of an entire virus, one piece of it. As soon as there is a, quote, variant of that piece, it loses efficacy. And you should have known. And you're still out there promoting it. Promoting it to Maoris. How racist are you? You stand around and your party calls everybody else in New Zealand racist. You're out there handing out fried chicken to Maoris to get them vaccinated. How disgusting are you? Shot, bruh. Like you're even reaching in and using their culture against them. You're culturally appropriating for a vaccine that you know is going to lose efficacy really fast and you know was designed very narrow spectrum, as we say in our industry, which means as soon as something changes, it fails. And that's what we're seeing now. And you're promoting it for the Delta variant, which is absurd because the Delta variant in other parts of the world, that's where we're seeing 39% efficacy with the Delta variant. That's where we're seeing 60% efficacy, or roughly, in the UK with the Delta variant. But it's the Delta variant here because you guys have said that. You said ESR, who did the genomics, and that's what it is. And yet you're promoting the exact same vaccine. Well, New Zealanders aren't all that different from people in other parts of the world, especially multicultural countries like England and the United States. Well, surely we'd be seeing this, so you know what you're doing.